Venus is often called the planet of love, but in astrology, Venus represents something much deeper than romance. It reveals what we value, what we find beautiful, and why certain people and experiences naturally attract us. Why do we feel drawn to some people instantly, while others leave us indifferent? Why do beauty, music, art, and pleasure have such a powerful effect on the human mind? The answers lie in Venus. In this episode, we explore the astrological meaning of Venus and the hidden force of attraction that shapes relationships, self-worth, pleasure, and harmony in our lives. Because understanding Venus is not only about understanding love, it is about understanding what the human heart truly values. In astrology, Venus represents the principle of value. It governs the quiet but powerful force that determines what we find meaningful, beautiful, and desirable in life. While many people immediately associate Venus with love or romance, its astrological function is deeper and more foundational. Venus answers a simple but profound question that operates constantly within the human psyche. What is worth my attention, my time, and my emotional investment? Every person moves through the world guided by invisible preferences. We are drawn to certain environments, certain aesthetics, certain types of people, and certain experiences. These preferences rarely appear random. They form a pattern that reflects our inner system of values. In astrology, Venus is the planet that symbolizes this system. It reveals what we appreciate, what we enjoy, and what we naturally gravitate toward without needing external pressure. When Venus operates in a balanced way, it brings a sense of harmony between desire and experience. The individual recognizes what truly brings satisfaction and moves toward those experiences with ease. There is no sense of forcing attraction. The movement toward pleasure and beauty feels natural. This is because Venus works through resonance rather than effort. Instead of pushing toward what we want, Venus draws us toward what feels aligned with our values. In everyday life, this principle of value becomes visible in countless subtle choices. The way a person decorates their home, the music they listen to, the food they enjoy, the way they express affection, and even the kind of friendships they cultivate all reflect Venusian influence. Each of these preferences reveals something about the inner landscape of the individual. Venus quietly shapes the atmosphere of life by guiding attention toward what feels pleasing and harmonious. Astrologically, Venus is not concerned with survival in the same way that other planetary forces are. Planets like Mars deal with action and assertion, while Saturn deals with responsibility and limitation. Venus operates differently. Its focus is not on necessity but on enrichment. It governs the experiences that make life enjoyable, rather than merely functional. Through Venus, the human psyche seeks beauty, comfort, connection, and emotional satisfaction. This does not mean that Venus encourages excess or indulgence. In its healthiest form, Venus teaches discernment. True value is not measured by quantity but by quality. A single meaningful relationship may carry more value than many superficial connections. A simple but beautiful environment may bring more peace than a luxurious but chaotic one. Venus refines perception so that the individual begins to recognize what truly nourishes the spirit rather than what merely stimulates the senses. The principle of value also influences how we relate to possessions and resources. Venus governs appreciation rather than accumulation. When its energy is balanced, a person develops gratitude for the beauty that already exists in their life. They learn to care for what they have rather than constantly seeking something new. In this way, Venus supports sustainability and respect for the material world. Another dimension of Venusian value appears through aesthetic sensitivity. Some individuals possess a natural ability to recognize harmony in color, sound, design, or movement. This ability is often associated with strong Venusian influence. The mind becomes attuned to patterns of balance and proportion, allowing the individual to create environments that feel calming and visually pleasing. This sensitivity is not limited to artists or designers. Anyone influenced by Venus can develop an appreciation for beauty in everyday moments. The softness of evening light, the rhythm of music, the elegance of a well-prepared meal, or the warmth of a thoughtful gesture all reflect Venusian awareness. These experiences may seem small, yet they contribute greatly to emotional well-being. The principle of value also plays an important role in decision-making. Before action occurs, the mind evaluates whether an experience feels worthwhile. This evaluation happens quickly and often unconsciously. Venus contributes to this process by shaping what the psyche considers rewarding. When personal values are clear, choices become easier because the individual instinctively recognizes what aligns with their priorities. However, when the sense of value becomes distorted, difficulties arise. A person may begin to seek validation through external approval rather than internal satisfaction. Instead of pursuing genuine enjoyment, they may chase admiration, luxury, or superficial beauty. In these moments, Venus loses its connection to authentic harmony and becomes tied to comparison and insecurity. Astrology invites us to observe these patterns without judgment. By understanding how Venus functions within the psyche, we can begin to refine our sense of value. We learn to distinguish between what genuinely enriches our lives and what merely imitates beauty without substance. This process brings greater clarity to the choices we make and the relationships we cultivate. Ultimately, Venus teaches that value is not imposed from the outside world. It emerges from within. What we recognize as beautiful or meaningful reflects our inner orientation toward life. When that orientation becomes aligned with authenticity, the experiences we attract begin to mirror that harmony. Venus then fulfills its true astrological role, guiding the individual toward a life shaped not only by necessity but also by appreciation, connection, and beauty. In astrology, Venus describes the way love is experienced, expressed, and received. While other planets may speak about passion, instinct, or commitment, Venus reveals the emotional language through which affection flows between people. It governs the softer side of connection, the gestures of warmth, kindness, attraction, and appreciation that allow relationships to develop naturally rather than through force. Love under the influence of Venus is not about intensity or conquest. Those qualities belong more to Mars. Venus operates through harmony. It seeks mutual pleasure, balance, and the feeling that two people enjoy each other's presence. This is why Venus is often associated with charm and gentleness. Its energy draws people together by creating an atmosphere where connection feels comfortable and safe. Every person expresses love in a slightly different way, and astrology attributes much of that variation to Venus. Some people show affection through words, others through touch, others through thoughtful acts of care. These differences are not accidental. They reflect the unique way Venus operates within the individual psyche. Understanding this helps explain why two people may care deeply for one another, yet misunderstand each other's emotional signals. Each may be expressing love through a different Venusian language. Venus also governs how we respond to affection offered by others. The same gesture that feels meaningful to one person may feel insignificant to another. This does not mean that either person is wrong. It simply reflects the unique pattern of emotional resonance shaped by Venus. When partners begin to recognize these differences, relationships often become smoother because each person learns how to express love in ways that the other can easily recognize. Another important function of Venus in astrology is the ability to create emotional ease. Healthy Venus energy allows affection to flow without excessive tension or fear. People with a well-balanced Venus often find it easier to form connections because they approach relationships with openness rather than defensiveness. They tend to appreciate beauty in others and express admiration naturally, which encourages reciprocity. However, Venus does not operate only in romantic relationships. Its influence extends to friendships, family bonds, and all forms of cooperative interaction. Whenever individuals exchange kindness, appreciation, or emotional support, Venus is present. In this sense, Venus represents the social glue that allows human communities to function harmoniously. In romantic partnerships, Venus reveals what a person finds attractive in others. This attraction goes beyond physical appearance. It includes personality traits, emotional qualities, and aesthetic preferences that create a feeling of compatibility. One person may be drawn to calm and graceful partners, while another may prefer someone expressive and playful. These preferences reflect deeper Venusian patterns of value and emotional resonance. The influence of Venus also shapes how individuals maintain harmony within relationships. Venus prefers diplomacy over confrontation. When conflict arises, its instinct is often to restore balance through compromise and understanding. This does not mean avoiding disagreement entirely. Rather, Venus seeks solutions that preserve the relationship rather than damaging it unnecessarily. Yet the desire for harmony can sometimes create challenges. If a person becomes too focused on maintaining peace, they may suppress their own needs in order to avoid conflict. Over time, this can lead to frustration or emotional imbalance. Astrology teaches that healthy Venus energy must be balanced with honesty. True harmony cannot exist when important feelings remain unspoken. Venus also influences how people perceive romantic idealism. Many individuals carry internal images of what love should look like, often shaped by cultural stories, personal experiences, or aesthetic preferences. Venus governs these images and expectations. When reality differs from these ideals, disappointment may arise. Understanding Venus helps individuals recognize the difference between genuine connection and unrealistic fantasy. Another dimension of Venus involves appreciation. Love grows stronger when individuals actively recognize the qualities they admire in one another. Compliments, gratitude, and small acts of affection nourish relationships because they reinforce the emotional bond. Venus thrives in environments where appreciation is expressed openly rather than assumed. From an astrological perspective, Venus teaches that love is not only a feeling but also a practice. The emotional atmosphere between people is shaped continuously through communication, gestures, and shared experiences. When these interactions reflect kindness and respect, relationships become more resilient. When they become careless or dismissive, the connection gradually weakens. Venus therefore reminds us that affection flourishes where beauty and appreciation are present. Beauty in this sense does not refer only to appearance. It includes kindness, generosity, emotional warmth, and the ability to see value in another person. When individuals learn to recognize and cultivate these qualities, love becomes less fragile and more enduring. Ultimately, the astrological function of Venus in love is to create connection through pleasure and mutual appreciation. It encourages people to see one another not as opponents or obstacles, but as companions capable of sharing meaningful experiences. When Venus operates in balance, relationships become spaces where affection flows naturally and where both individuals feel valued for who they are. In astrology, Venus governs the principle of attraction, while Mars represents pursuit, action, and the drive to go after what one desires. Venus operates through a completely different mechanism. It draws rather than chases. This difference reveals one of the most important astrological functions of Venus, the ability to create magnetic energy that invites connection, appreciation, and attention without force. Attraction under Venus is subtle. It does not rely on intensity or urgency. Instead, it emerges through harmony, beauty, and resonance. When something aligns with our values or aesthetic preferences, we feel naturally pulled toward it. This feeling is not created by logical analysis. It arises instantly, often before conscious thought has time to evaluate the situation. Venus governs this immediate recognition of what feels pleasing, compatible, or emotionally satisfying. Every person carries a unique Venusian pattern that influences what they find attractive. Some individuals are drawn to calm, graceful environments, while others feel energized by vibrant, expressive atmospheres. The same principle applies to relationships. A person may feel naturally attracted to individuals who embody certain qualities such as kindness, elegance, humor, or artistic sensitivity. These preferences reveal the internal structure of Venus operating within the psyche. The magnetic nature of Venus is not limited to romantic attraction. It influences all forms of social connection. People who express strong Venusian qualities often possess a natural ability to create comfort in social situations. Their presence tends to feel welcoming, balanced, and aesthetically pleasing. Others feel drawn toward them, not because of dominance or intensity, but because their energy encourages harmony and ease. This magnetic quality can be observed in many aspects of everyday life. Consider how certain environments immediately feel inviting, while others feel tense or uncomfortable. A beautifully arranged room, a piece of music that resonates emotionally, or a well-designed object can attract attention without demanding it. Venus operates through this same principle of aesthetic and emotional resonance. Astrologically, attraction is deeply connected to recognition. When Venus encounters something that reflects our inner values, the psyche experiences a sense of familiarity and pleasure. This is why attraction often feels mysterious. People may struggle to explain why they are drawn to a particular person or place. The answer usually lies in the subtle alignment between external qualities and internal preferences shaped by Venus Venusian. Attraction also plays an important role in the formation of relationships. When two individuals share compatible Venus patterns, they often experience a natural sense of harmony. Their preferences for affection, beauty, and emotional expression complement one another. This does not mean that conflict will never arise, but the underlying attraction creates a foundation of appreciation that helps relationships endure challenges. However, attraction can also reveal areas of imbalance. Sometimes individuals are drawn toward experiences that reflect unresolved desires or unrealistic ideals. In these cases, Venus may highlight qualities that appear beautiful on the surface, but lack deeper compatibility. Astrology encourages awareness of these patterns so that attraction can be understood rather than followed blindly. The healthiest expression of Venusian attraction occurs when appreciation is balanced with discernment. Instead of becoming captivated solely by appearance or immediate pleasure, the individual learns to recognize whether the attraction supports long-term harmony. This deeper understanding allows Venus to guide choices that align with authentic values rather than temporary fascination. Another important dimension of Venusian magnetism is self-attraction. The way a person relates to their own sense of beauty and worth influences how others respond to them. Individuals who feel comfortable with their own value often project an energy of ease that naturally attracts positive attention. This phenomenon is not about physical appearance alone. It reflects the internal alignment between self-respect and outward expression. Venus teaches that attraction flows more easily when there is harmony within the self. When individuals appreciate their own qualities and cultivate environments that reflect their values, they create an energetic field that invites similar experiences into their lives. This is why people often feel most attractive when they are relaxed, authentic, and connected to what they enjoy. From an astrological perspective, Venus reminds us that attraction is not something we must constantly pursue through effort. Instead, it emerges naturally when we align with what we truly value. The more clearly we understand our own Venusian preferences, the easier it becomes to recognize the people and experiences that resonate with them. Ultimately, Venus reveals that magnetism arises from harmony rather than force. What we appreciate, we move toward. What reflects our values, we recognize instinctively. Through this process, attraction becomes more than a fleeting emotion. It becomes a guide that helps shape relationships, environments, and experiences that reflect the deeper beauty we seek in life. In astrology, Venus governs the human capacity to experience pleasure through the senses. While some planetary forces drive ambition, survival, or transformation, Venus focuses on enjoyment. It represents the ability to recognize beauty in the physical world and to allow that beauty to nourish emotional well-being. Through Venus, life becomes more than a series of obligations. It becomes something that can be savored. The sensory world plays an important role in this Venusian function. Sight, sound, taste, touch, and scent all become pathways through which pleasure can enter human experience. A harmonious melody, a well-prepared meal, the softness of fabric, the warmth of sunlight on the skin, or the elegance of a beautiful environment can instantly influence mood. These experiences may appear simple, yet they carry deep psychological significance. Venus reminds us that emotional balance is often supported by sensory harmony. In ancient cultures, pleasure was not considered trivial when it was approached with awareness. Beauty was treated as a form of nourishment for the spirit. Music, art, fragrance, color, and graceful movement were integrated into daily life because they elevated the atmosphere in which people lived. Venus governed this appreciation for aesthetic environments, encouraging individuals to surround themselves with elements that created calm and enjoyment rather than harshness or disorder. The astrological function of Venus, therefore, includes the ability to recognize what feels pleasing to the senses. This ability varies from person to person. Some individuals are especially sensitive to visual beauty and feel inspired by art, architecture, or nature. Others are more attuned to sound and find deep satisfaction in music or the rhythm of language. Some people derive pleasure from taste and the ritual of preparing food, while others appreciate textures and physical comfort. These preferences reveal the personal expression of Venus within each individual. When Venus operates in a balanced way, the person becomes aware of what sensory experiences support emotional harmony. They learn to cultivate environments that reflect these preferences, creating spaces that feel welcoming and restorative. Pleasure under Venus does not necessarily require extravagance. In fact, Venus often expresses itself most clearly through simplicity. A quiet garden, a well-arranged room, a favorite piece of music, or a shared meal with friends can carry more emotional value than elaborate displays of luxury. What matters most is the presence of harmony. Venus responds to balance, proportion, and authenticity, rather than excess. However, the pursuit of pleasure can become distorted when awareness is lost. When Venus becomes imbalanced, enjoyment may turn into indulgence. Instead of appreciating sensory experiences in moderation, the individual may begin to rely on them as a way to escape discomfort or dissatisfaction. Pleasure then becomes temporary relief rather than genuine nourishment. Astrology recognizes this shadow aspect of Venus because the desire for comfort is a natural human instinct. Food, beauty, affection, and relaxation all provide important forms of emotional support. The challenge arises when these pleasures become substitutes for deeper fulfillment. When this happens, the individual may continue seeking more stimulation without ever feeling truly satisfied. Balanced Venus energy offers a different approach. It teaches that pleasure is most meaningful when it complements a life already grounded in purpose and connection. Sensory enjoyment becomes a celebration of life rather than an attempt to compensate for emptiness. A beautiful environment enhances peace. Music deepens emotional expression. Art invites reflection. These experiences enrich life without dominating it. Another dimension of Venusian pleasure appears through creativity. Many artistic activities are expressions of the same sensory intelligence that Venus governs. Painting, dancing, designing, cooking, or arranging spaces all involve the ability to recognize harmony and translate it into form. Through creative expression, individuals participate in the creation of beauty rather than simply consuming it. This creative impulse reflects the deeper meaning of Venus in astrology. Venus does not only appreciate beauty, it also generates it. When someone arranges flowers, composes music, or prepares a beautiful meal, they are working with Venusian energy. They are shaping the sensory world in a way that invites others to experience pleasure and harmony. Pleasure therefore becomes a form of communication. A beautiful environment signals care and attention. A thoughtfully prepared meal expresses hospitality. A piece of music can convey emotion without the need for words. Venus allows these experiences to carry meaning beyond logic, touching the emotional layers of human awareness. From an astrological perspective, Venus reminds us that the senses are not distractions from spiritual awareness. They are gateways through which appreciation of life can deepen. When sensory experiences are approached with mindfulness rather than excess, they become sources of gratitude and inspiration. Ultimately, Venus teaches that pleasure is part of balance. The ability to pause, enjoy beauty, and engage with the sensory world restores emotional equilibrium. It reminds us that life is not only about effort or survival. It is also about appreciating the textures, colors, sounds, and tastes that make existence rich and meaningful. In astrology, Venus governs the dynamics of relationship through harmony, cooperation, and emotional exchange, while other planetary forces describe instinct, passion, or commitment. Venus focuses on the quality of interaction between people. It reveals how individuals create balance in relationships, how they maintain emotional warmth, and how they navigate the subtle art of connecting with others in a way that feels pleasant and mutually supportive. Relationships are not sustained by attraction alone. Initial attraction may bring two people together, but it is the Venusian qualities of appreciation, kindness, and consideration that allow the connection to continue growing. Venus represents the ability to create an atmosphere where both individuals feel valued. This atmosphere is often built through small gestures that communicate respect and care, rather than through dramatic expressions of emotion. The influence of Venus becomes visible in the way people approach cooperation. In healthy relationship dynamics, individuals are able to recognize the needs and preferences of others without feeling that their own identity is threatened. Venus encourages a sense of partnership rather than competition. It promotes the idea that relationships thrive when both people experience enjoyment and emotional ease in each other's presence. This quality of emotional balance is one of Venus's most important contributions to human connection. When Venus operates harmoniously, individuals tend to communicate in ways that preserve respect even during disagreement. They look for solutions that maintain the relationship rather than escalating conflict unnecessarily. This does not mean that conflict disappears entirely, but it is approached with the intention of restoring harmony rather than proving superiority. Venus also governs the social skills that make relationships comfortable. Charm, politeness, and consideration are often expressions of Venusian energy. These qualities help people navigate social environments smoothly, allowing conversations to unfold without tension. In this sense, Venus functions as a mediator that softens interactions and encourages cooperation. In romantic relationships, Venus reveals how affection is expressed through everyday behavior. Some individuals show love through physical affection, others through compliments, thoughtful gestures, or shared experiences. These expressions reflect personal Venusian styles that shape how love is communicated. When partners understand each other's Venus patterns, they often find it easier to interpret these signals of affection. Relationship harmony under Venus also involves the exchange of appreciation. People naturally feel closer to those who acknowledge their positive qualities. Compliments, gratitude, and admiration strengthen emotional bonds because they affirm the value each person brings to the relationship. Venus thrives in environments where appreciation is expressed openly rather than assumed. However, the desire for harmony can sometimes create challenges if it becomes excessive. Individuals strongly influenced by Venus may avoid confrontation in order to preserve peace. While this instinct is understandable, avoiding necessary conversations can lead to unresolved tension over time. Healthy Venus energy requires honesty alongside kindness. Genuine harmony emerges not from silence but from respectful communication. Another dimension of Venus in relationships involves reciprocity. Balanced relationships rely on mutual effort. When appreciation, attention, and emotional support flow in both directions, the connection becomes stable and rewarding. Venus encourages this exchange by reminding individuals that relationships are sustained through shared participation rather than one-sided sacrifice. Venus also influences how people navigate social circles and friendships. Those with strong Venusian qualities often enjoy creating pleasant environments where others feel welcome. They may host gatherings, organize social activities, or simply offer companionship that feels calming and supportive. Their presence can contribute to a sense of ease within groups because they instinctively recognize how to maintain social harmony. Astrologically, Venus reminds us that relationships are living systems shaped by continuous interaction. Attraction may spark the beginning, but daily gestures of respect and appreciation determine whether the connection deepens or fades. When individuals cultivate these Venusian qualities, relationships tend to become sources of comfort and emotional enrichment, rather than tension. The deeper lesson of Venus in relationship dynamics is the recognition that harmony requires participation. It is not created automatically. It emerges when individuals choose to approach one another with patience, empathy, and appreciation. These qualities create the conditions in which trust and affection can flourish. Ultimately, Venus teaches that relationships are not only about emotional intensity or shared responsibilities, they are also about enjoyment. The ability to laugh together, appreciate beauty together, and create pleasant moments together strengthens bonds in ways that purely practical interactions cannot. Through Venus, relationships become spaces where connection feels natural and where the presence of another person adds warmth and richness to everyday life. In astrology, Venus governs aesthetic intelligence, the human capacity to recognize harmony, balance, and beauty in the world. This form of intelligence is different from logical reasoning or analytical thinking. It operates through perception and feeling rather than calculation. Aesthetic intelligence allows individuals to sense when something is visually pleasing, emotionally graceful, or naturally balanced, even when they cannot explain exactly why. From an astrological perspective, Venus refines perception. It teaches the mind to notice subtle relationships between form, color, proportion, and rhythm. When Venus is strong in the psyche, a person often develops an intuitive understanding of what feels harmonious. They may instinctively arrange objects in a pleasing way, select clothing that creates visual balance, or appreciate artistic expression that resonates emotionally. This sensitivity to harmony is not limited to traditional art. Venusian perception appears in many areas of life. The design of a home, the way a table is prepared for a meal, the arrangement of flowers in a room, or the tone of music chosen to create a certain atmosphere, all reflect aesthetic intelligence at work. Through these details, individuals shape environments that support emotional comfort and beauty. In ancient cultures, beauty was considered an essential element of human well-being rather than a luxury. Temples, clothing, music, and architecture were often designed with careful attention to proportion and symbolism. These creations reflected the belief that beauty nourishes the soul in much the same way that food nourishes the body. Venus governed this understanding that harmony in the environment influences harmony within the individual. Aesthetic intelligence also involves the ability to perceive subtle imbalances. Just as Venus recognizes beauty, it can also sense when something feels discordant. A room may feel uncomfortable even if nothing appears obviously wrong. A melody may feel unresolved even if the listener cannot identify the technical reason. These perceptions arise because the mind is responding to patterns of balance and proportion that Venus helps us detect. This sensitivity often leads individuals with strong Venusian influence toward artistic or creative activities. Painting, design, fashion, music, dance, and culinary arts all involve the ability to transform perception of beauty into tangible form. Through creative expression, the individual becomes not only an observer of harmony, but also a creator of it. However, Aesthetic intelligence is not restricted to professional artists. Anyone can cultivate awareness of beauty in daily life. The way natural light enters a room in the morning, the sound of wind moving through leaves, or the visual rhythm of waves along the shoreline can all evoke a sense of harmony. Venus invites people to slow down and notice these moments, recognizing that beauty often exists quietly within ordinary experiences. Astrologically, Venus also connects aesthetic intelligence with emotional atmosphere. Environments that are visually harmonious often produce a calming psychological effect. Balanced colors, gentle lighting, and pleasing textures can create a sense of relaxation and safety. In contrast, chaotic or harsh environments may increase tension or restlessness. Through this connection, Venus influences the relationship between physical surroundings and emotional state. Another aspect of aesthetic intelligence involves refinement. As individuals develop their sense of beauty, their preferences often become more precise. Instead of being drawn to everything that appears impressive or elaborate, they begin to recognize subtler qualities, such as elegance, simplicity, and balance. This refinement reflects the maturation of Venusian perception. Yet the pursuit of beauty can also become distorted if it is driven by comparison or external approval. When individuals begin to measure beauty only by social standards or trends, they may lose connection with their authentic aesthetic sense. In such cases, Venus becomes influenced by insecurity rather than genuine appreciation. The individual may attempt to imitate beauty rather than recognize it naturally. Balanced Venus energy encourages authenticity in aesthetic choices. True beauty is not limited to fashionable standards or expensive materials. It often appears through sincerity, craftsmanship, and thoughtful design. A simple environment created with care may feel far more harmonious than an elaborate space designed without sensitivity. Venus also teaches that aesthetic intelligence contributes to emotional connection between people. Shared appreciation of beauty can create powerful bonds. Two individuals who enjoy similar music, art, or environments often feel a sense of compatibility because their Venusian preferences resonate with one another. These shared experiences strengthen relationships by creating moments of mutual enjoyment. Ultimately, the astrological function of Venus and aesthetic intelligence reminds us that beauty is not superficial. It reflects an underlying order that human beings are capable of perceiving and recreating. Through this awareness, individuals learn to shape their surroundings in ways that support peace, inspiration, and emotional balance. Venus therefore acts as a guide that helps the human mind recognize harmony in the world and participate in its creation. By cultivating this sensitivity, people enrich not only their own experience but also the environments and relationships that surround them. Beauty becomes more than decoration. It becomes a language through which harmony is expressed and shared. Every planetary force in astrology carries both a harmonious expression and a shadow expression. Venus is no exception. While it governs love, beauty, pleasure, and harmony, its energy can become distorted when the desire for comfort or approval begins to dominate personal values. In these moments, Venus no longer guides the individual toward authentic enjoyment, but toward external validation and emotional dependency. The shadow of Venus often appears when self-worth becomes tied too strongly to how others respond. Instead of appreciating themselves from within, individuals may begin seeking constant reassurance from relationships, admiration, or social approval. Compliments and affection become necessary rather than enjoyable. When approval is received, Confidence rises temporarily. When it is absent, insecurity quickly replaces it. This cycle reveals that Venus has lost its connection to inner value and has become dependent on external reflection. Another form of the Venus shadow appears through excessive indulgence. Because Venus governs pleasure and sensory enjoyment, its energy can sometimes encourage overconsumption when balance is lost. Comfort may become avoidance. Instead of using beauty and pleasure to enrich life, the individual may begin using them as distractions from emotional discomfort. Food, luxury, romance, or entertainment can become substitutes for deeper emotional fulfillment. Astrology does not judge these tendencies as moral failures. They represent natural expressions of a planetary force that has moved away from equilibrium. Venus seeks harmony and enjoyment, but without awareness it may pursue these experiences without moderation. When pleasure becomes the primary focus of life, other important dimensions, such as responsibility, honesty, and growth, may receive less attention. The shadow of Venus can also manifest through vanity or excessive concern with appearance. Because Venus governs beauty and aesthetics, individuals strongly influenced by this planet may become overly focused on how they are perceived by others. Attention may shift from genuine self-expression toward maintaining an image that receives admiration. In such cases, beauty becomes performance rather than authenticity. This pattern can extend into relationships as well. When Venus operates through insecurity, individuals may attempt to maintain harmony by avoiding conflict at any cost. Disagreements may be suppressed rather than discussed. The desire to remain liked or accepted becomes stronger than the desire to communicate honestly. While this approach may create temporary peace, it often leads to unresolved tension that eventually surfaces in other ways. Another dimension of Venus's shadow involves attachment to idealized images of love. Some individuals carry strong romantic fantasies about how relationships should look or feel. When real relationships fail to match these expectations, disappointment may arise even when genuine affection is present. The person may search continually for a perfect experience that exists more clearly in imagination than in reality. Astrology teaches that these patterns are opportunities for awareness rather than reasons for criticism. When the shadow of Venus becomes visible, it reveals areas where personal values need clarification. The individual is invited to ask deeper questions about what truly brings satisfaction and emotional balance. Restoring harmony to Venus often begins with reconnecting to self-worth. When individuals recognize their inherent value, they become less dependent on external validation. Relationships shift from being sources of reassurance to sources of shared enjoyment. Appreciation flows more freely because it is not driven by fear of rejection. Balance also returns when pleasure is approached with mindfulness rather than excess. Enjoyment remains an important part of life, but it becomes integrated with other values such as creativity, connection, and personal growth. Sensory experiences are appreciated without becoming necessary for emotional stability. Honesty also plays an essential role in restoring Venusian harmony. When individuals learn to communicate their needs and boundaries respectfully, relationships become more authentic. Harmony becomes the result of understanding rather than avoidance. Conflict, when it appears, becomes an opportunity for deeper connection rather than a threat to stability. The shadow of Venus ultimately reminds us that beauty and love cannot replace self-awareness. When the search for pleasure or approval overshadows personal values, imbalance naturally appears. Yet this imbalance carries an important lesson. It encourages individuals to rediscover what truly brings harmony to their lives. Through this process, Venus regains its deeper function. It returns to guiding the individual toward genuine appreciation rather than illusion. Beauty becomes authentic rather than performative. Love becomes mutual rather than dependent. Pleasure becomes enriching rather than distracting. In this way, the shadow of Venus does not represent failure. It represents an invitation to refine the way we relate to beauty, affection, and value. When awareness replaces insecurity, the Venusian path becomes clearer. Harmony arises naturally when love begins with self-respect and extends outward through genuine appreciation for others. In astrology, Venus is deeply connected to the experience of self. While many people think of Venus only in terms of love and attraction, its deeper psychological function is the internal sense of value a person holds about themselves. Before love can be received from others in a healthy way, there must be a quiet recognition within the self that one is worthy of care, respect, and appreciation. Venus governs this recognition. Self-worth does not appear suddenly. It develops gradually through experience, perception, and emotional learning. From an astrological perspective, Venus reflects how individuals internalize the idea of value. It shapes the way a person evaluates their own qualities, talents, and presence in the world. When Venus operates harmoniously, the individual tends to feel comfortable with who they are. They recognize both strengths and imperfections without feeling diminished by them. This inner sense of value influences every relationship a person enters. People naturally gravitate toward connections that mirror how they see themselves. When self-worth is healthy, individuals often attract relationships that contain respect and appreciation. They expect to be treated with kindness because they believe they deserve it. Boundaries become easier to maintain because their value is not dependent on another person's approval. However, when the Venusian sense of worth becomes unstable, relationships may begin to reflect that instability. A person who doubts their own value may accept situations where appreciation is inconsistent or absent. They may tolerate disrespect or emotional imbalance because part of them believes this is the level of affection available to them. In this way, Venus quietly shapes the emotional landscape of relationships long before any conflict appears. Astrology emphasizes that this pattern is not a punishment or a fixed destiny. Instead, it reveals an important psychological dynamic. The way individuals treat themselves often becomes the standard by which others treat them. When self-respect grows, external relationships tend to adjust naturally because the individual begins to choose connections that reflect their inner value. Venus also influences the ability to appreciate personal qualities without arrogance. Balanced self-worth is not the same as superiority. It is simply the recognition that one's existence carries inherent value. A person with healthy Venus energy can acknowledge their talents and beauty without needing constant validation from others. They enjoy compliments, but their identity does not depend on them. This inner stability allows individuals to engage in relationships from a place of generosity rather than insecurity. When self-worth is strong, affection can be offered freely because it is not motivated by fear of losing approval. Love becomes an exchange rather than a negotiation. Each person contributes appreciation without feeling that they must compete for emotional security. Another aspect of Venusian self-worth appears through the way individuals care for themselves. The environments people create, the clothing they choose, the food they prepare, and the time they dedicate to rest all reflect their internal sense of value. When someone feels worthy of comfort and beauty, They often create surroundings that reflect that belief. When self-worth is diminished, personal care may become neglected or treated as unimportant. Venus encourages individuals to cultivate environments that reflect appreciation for life. This does not require luxury or extravagance. Small gestures of care can reinforce a sense of value. A clean and peaceful space, a favorite piece of music, or time spent enjoying nature can remind the mind that comfort and beauty are worth experiencing. Creative expression can also strengthen self-worth through Venus. When individuals create art, music, design, or any form of aesthetic expression, they transform internal appreciation into something visible. The act of creating beauty reinforces the belief that one's ideas and perceptions are meaningful. Venus supports this process by encouraging the individual to recognize the value of their own creative voice. Astrology also teaches that self-worth evolves throughout life. Experiences, relationships, and personal growth continually reshape how individuals perceive themselves. Venus encourages reflection on these changes so that the sense of value becomes more authentic over time. Instead of relying on external approval, individuals gradually develop a deeper understanding of what truly makes them feel aligned and respected. The lesson of Venus and self-worth is ultimately about recognition. When individuals recognize their own value, they begin to see beauty not only in themselves, but also in the world around them. Appreciation becomes easier because it is no longer overshadowed by insecurity or comparison. Venus reminds us that value is not something that must be earned endlessly. It already exists as part of being alive. The task is simply to acknowledge it. When that acknowledgement becomes sincere, relationships become healthier, choices become clearer, and the pursuit of beauty and love becomes more genuine. Through this process, Venus fulfills one of its most important astrological roles. It helps individuals understand that love and appreciation begin within the self and extend outward into the world through the way we relate to others, to beauty, and to the experiences we choose to welcome into our lives. In astrology, Venus functions as a principle of social harmony. While other planetary energies may drive ambition, competition, or transformation, Venus focuses on the art of coexistence. It represents the human capacity to create peaceful interactions, to cooperate with others, and to build relationships that are sustained through kindness, appreciation, and mutual respect. Through Venus, society finds balance between individuals who might otherwise move only according to personal interests. Human communities depend on this Venusian principle more than people often realize. Without it, social life would be dominated by constant conflict or rigid negotiation. Venus softens interactions by encouraging diplomacy, empathy, and the recognition that cooperation can often produce better outcomes than confrontation. In this sense, Venus acts as a mediator within the zodiac, guiding individuals toward solutions that maintain connection rather than damaging it. This mediating quality appears in everyday social behavior. Simple gestures such as politeness, gratitude, or thoughtful attention reflect Venusian influence. These actions may seem small, yet they play a powerful role in shaping the emotional atmosphere between people. A sincere compliment can transform the tone of a conversation. A respectful response during disagreement can prevent unnecessary hostility. Through these subtle interactions, Venus quietly supports social balance. Astrologically, Venus also governs the desire for fairness in relationships. People influenced strongly by Venus often feel uncomfortable in environments where inequality or unnecessary harshness dominates. They instinctively search for ways to restore balance. This may appear through negotiation, compromise, or the attempt to find solutions that consider the needs of all involved. The Venusian approach to harmony does not require perfect agreement. Instead, it encourages understanding. When individuals attempt to see a situation from another person's perspective, tension often decreases because both sides feel acknowledged. Venus teaches that being heard is sometimes more important than being proven right. This recognition can transform disagreement into dialogue rather than conflict. Another dimension of Venusian harmony involves social charm. Some individuals possess a natural ability to create ease within groups. Their presence tends to calm tension because they communicate with warmth and attentiveness. These people often know how to introduce humor at the right moment, or how to redirect conversation when emotions become intense. This ability reflects Venus's influence on social intelligence. Venus also plays an important role in collective environments, such as communities, workplaces, and friendships. Groups that cultivate Venusian qualities often develop stronger cooperation. When appreciation and respect are present, individuals feel more motivated to contribute positively. Collaboration becomes smoother because people trust that their contributions will be valued. However, the pursuit of harmony can sometimes become excessive if it leads to avoidance of necessary truth. When individuals prioritize peace above honesty, important issues may remain unaddressed. Venus teaches that genuine harmony cannot be sustained through silence alone. Respectful communication must accompany the desire for balance. When honesty and kindness work together, relationships become stronger rather than fragile. Social harmony under Venus also depends on appreciation of diversity. People possess different personalities, values, and preferences. Yet Venus encourages the recognition that these differences can coexist within a shared environment. Instead of forcing uniformity, Venus seeks balance between individuality and cooperation. This principle becomes especially important in friendships. Healthy friendships often reflect Venusian energy because they are sustained by mutual enjoyment rather than obligation. Friends share experiences, laughter, and appreciation for each other's presence. These interactions reinforce emotional bonds that contribute to overall well-being. Venus also influences the cultural expression of harmony through art, music, fashion, and shared celebrations. These activities create spaces where people gather not for survival or competition, but for enjoyment and connection. Festivals, concerts, and artistic gatherings allow individuals to experience unity through beauty and creativity. Venus governs the social atmosphere that makes these experiences meaningful. Astrology therefore views Venus not only as a planet of personal affection, but also as a force that shapes collective life. When Venusian values such as kindness, fairness, and appreciation are encouraged, communities become more supportive and cooperative. When these qualities are neglected, social environments often become tense or fragmented. The deeper lesson of Venus as social harmony is that connection requires participation. Harmony is not a passive condition that appears automatically. It grows through continuous acts of respect, understanding, and appreciation. Each interaction contributes either to balance or to imbalance within relationships and communities. Venus reminds us that peaceful coexistence is one of the most valuable achievements of human interaction. Through diplomacy, kindness, and appreciation, Individuals create environments where cooperation becomes natural. In this way, Venus fulfills its astrological role as the quiet architect of harmony, guiding people toward relationships and communities that reflect the beauty of balance and mutual respect. When the astrological function of Venus is fully understood, a deeper pattern begins to emerge. Venus is not only about romance, pleasure, or beauty in isolation. It is about the way value moves through human life. It reveals what we are drawn toward, what we appreciate, and what we choose to nurture in our relationships and surroundings. Through Venus, the human experience becomes more than survival or ambition. It becomes meaningful through connection and appreciation. Every expression of Venus begins with recognition. We recognize beauty in a landscape, warmth in a person's presence, harmony in music, or comfort in a peaceful environment. That moment of recognition creates attraction. Attraction then becomes the starting point for relationships, creativity, and emotional fulfillment. In this way, Venus quietly shapes the direction of our lives by guiding our attention toward what feels enriching. Throughout this journey, Venus has shown many dimensions of its influence. It reveals how love is expressed and received. It explains why certain people feel naturally attractive to us while others do not. It governs pleasure, aesthetic sensitivity, social harmony, and the subtle diplomacy that allows human relationships to function with grace rather than conflict. At the same time, it reveals the shadow patterns that appear when value becomes distorted through insecurity, indulgence, or dependency. Yet the deeper lesson of Venus is not simply about attraction or pleasure. It is about alignment between what we value internally and what we invite into our lives externally. When individuals recognize their own worth, their choices begin to reflect that recognition. Relationships become healthier because they are based on appreciation rather than need. Beauty becomes more meaningful because it reflects authenticity rather than comparison. Astrology teaches that Venus acts as a compass of the heart. It directs attention toward experiences that create harmony and emotional balance. When its influence is understood and cultivated, life begins to include more moments of appreciation. Music becomes more moving, relationships more genuine, and environments more comforting because they resonate with personal values. Venus also reminds us that enjoyment is not a distraction from meaningful living. It is an essential part of it. The ability to pause, admire beauty, share affection, and cultivate pleasant environments contributes to emotional well-being in ways that are often underestimated. Through these experiences, individuals reconnect with the richness of life, rather than becoming consumed only by responsibility or effort. At its highest expression, Venus teaches appreciation. It encourages us to recognize beauty where it already exists, rather than constantly searching for something greater. It invites gratitude for relationships, environments, and creative expressions that bring harmony into everyday life. When appreciation becomes part of awareness, the world itself begins to appear more vibrant and meaningful. Through this lens, Venus reveals that love and beauty are not separate from human development. They are essential forces that shape how people relate to one another and to the world around them. They guide choices, inspire creativity, and create the emotional bonds that make life worth sharing. As this exploration of Venus comes to a close, its lesson becomes clear. What we value determines what we cultivate. What we appreciate grows stronger in our lives. When values are aligned with authenticity, the experiences that appear begin to reflect harmony rather than conflict. With Venus understood, another planetary force waits ahead in the journey. Where Venus attracts and harmonizes, the next energy acts and asserts. The story now moves toward Mars, the planet that reveals how desire transforms into action and how the will expresses itself in the world. SEO description: STR optimized Venus in astrology represents much more than romance. It reveals how we experience love, how we express affection, what we find beautiful, and what we truly value in life. In astrology, Venus governs attraction, harmony, pleasure, aesthetics, and relationships. It shows how we connect with others, how we experience beauty through the senses, and how our sense of self-worth shapes the relationships we attract. In this episode of the Planetary Astrology series, we explore the deeper astrological meaning of Venus. You will discover how Venus influences love, pleasure, artistic sensitivity, social harmony, and the emotional values that guide human connection. This video explains the astrological function of Venus through psychology, symbolism, and classical astrological understanding, revealing how the planet of beauty and attraction shapes both relationships and personal values. This is not a horoscope or prediction video. Instead, it is a deep exploration of Venus as an archetypal force in astrology and how it influences the way we experience love, beauty, pleasure, and harmony in everyday life.